using crowdfunding as a technique for marketing as well. So I hope that you guys have a lot of questions, because that would help you understand this concept more and leverage that for your organization. Now, whoever would like to go next with their short introduction.
Good morning. My name is Santosh Lakshmanan. I run a non-profit called Farmers Empowerment and Development Association. And I mean, we are building platforms, to connect farmers with with the markets and empowering them in a few other ways. So you could visit feda.org.in to know more. I mean, we've been running for the past 3 years, and it's slowly improving the traction thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Santosh. Who's next? Yeah, Anusuya, you can go ahead.
I am Anusuya, representing Swaraj. This is a women's led platform. It is functioning in Karnataka. We focus on violence against women in 4 districts. Actually, so far we have addressed violence issues, and along with that, we are addressing the employment issue through MNREG, that is government program, government scheme. Most of people are knowing. In that also, women are leading whole this one. Basically, they focus along with employment. They focus on environment also, and some other activities. And we are also engaged in this sustainable agriculture. So this sustainable agriculture, we are thinking to. We have started that one. We are thinking to enlarge that intervention. Thanks.
Thanks, Anusuya. Mugdha, you want to go next?
I'm Mugdha, and I'm working for a program called Kasturi.
A little louder, please.
Sure. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm working for a program called Kasturi, which is into women coach agripreneurs. So we are in process of building up a trainers organization at a national level through tie-ups with agri-universities and a digital platform combined together. So we are working for a dream where every district has a agripreneur coach in the form of women who can spread the message of sustainable agriculture, at the same time can link the entire market horizontally across food business value chain.
Thanks, Mugdha. Somebody from SSK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Premal Joshi from Shikshan and Samaj Karandra, and I am on behalf of Mr. Dhirubhai Wagadia, because he is having some meeting, so he told me to join this conference. We are working as a alternative choice of livelihood for sustainable and healthy mass. This is our motto. We are working since 1980, and we are working in 4 districts: Amreli, Bhavnagar, Junagadh, and Gir Somnath. And we are working with 300 students who are coming from different type of migration, and we try to make them educated. And we are working with 10,000 farmers with Tata Trust. We are motivating them to apply the organic farming techniques.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sachin, would want to go next? Sachin, we're not able to hear you. You will have to increase your volume.
Oh, okay. That's it. Like, are we supporting the democracy?
So other than this Pratima attempt, it's not a leak kind of a thing, right? You wanted to respond to her.
Yeah,
but
Oh, so we will probably wait for introduction from Sachin later. So you can continue, Prarthana, because I think we don't have any more introductions right now.
Okay, so that sounds good. So what I'm going to do is I have a very short presentation with me on what I want to discuss with you today. So I'm just going to open up that presentation and share my screen so that you have access, you can see what the presentation is and what I'm taking you through. If you have any questions in between, please feel free to ask. You need not hold on till the end. If there's anything you have in specific you would want to clarify, just go ahead and ask your question. I'd be more than happy to take questions while I'm giving you the download of information that you're going to get today. I will also be more than happy to share this presentation with you so that you have this as a basic skeleton whenever you're looking at building your crowdfunding campaign. So Sanjay already has it with him, so he can share it with you, or you guys can reach out to me directly and I'd be more than happy to share all this information with you. So if you just give me a second, I'm going to just share my screen. Okay. So I think I have, okay. Just give me a second, it's loading. Okay. Can you all see the presentation right now? If any one of you can just give me a yes or a no, that would help.
Yes,
okay, great, thank you. Okay, awesome. So just as a beginning thing, how many of you know of what crowdfunding is or have used a crowdfunding platform before?
I've known about it, but I've not used it.
Okay. Okay, so crowdfunding, very simply put, is essentially reaching out to a larger number of people to put in small amounts of money to help you reach a target goal. Okay, now crowdfunding as a concept in India has evolved over the last 2 to 3 years, I would say, when initially people just crowdfunded for social initiatives, and now moving towards a lot more initiatives in the entrepreneurial as well as the creative space. So I think with the with the more digitization happening, people are getting more and more comfortable with exploring online ways of fundraising, and not just for fundraising, but also using crowdfunding as a marketing tool, because it's out there. There are people who are getting to know about your project, and it's a big validation for anyone who is fundraising, especially if you're in the social enterprise space. It gives validation to your proof of concept or your projects that, yes, you're going in the right direction and this is probably the way forward. Sorry. Okay. So why would you want to choose crowdfunding as a concept, right? So the first and foremost thing is your need for fundraising. Very often when we're working with not-for-profits or with social enterprises, we realize that a lot of their funding comes through grants as well as individual donors, right? But when you're looking at grants, it is not always possible that you get it in the time frame that you had stipulated, right? There are many a times when you need funds for a project which has just suddenly come up and you don't know where to go or what to do. That's when crowdfunding comes to play, because crowdfunding as a concept is time bound. There is an urgency which helps build virality, and hence you're able to fundraise a certain amount in that stipulated time frame, and hence you're able to fundraise for that project. The second thing that crowdfunding helps with is awareness. Like I said, crowdfunding is a brilliant marketing tool, right? You may be working in a small village area where you're working with the women, or you're working with the children, or just community development in general. But how else do you get the word out there? How do you get people to know that this is what you're doing, this is the impact that you're creating? So crowdfunding, apart from the fact that it's helping you raise your funds, is helping you use social media and any online mechanism to tell people about your initiatives, and hence generating awareness on your concept and your project. And the third thing that works, I think the beauty of crowdfunding is that the more and more people who come together to contribute to your campaign become a part of your community. They become your giving community, okay? So I think one of the examples that I would like to quote here is, this was one of the first campaigns one of the first few film-related campaigns we did at BitGiving. If you see, I've given a little short note on it as well. So Tiasa, she actually was fundraising to make a documentary on fishing cats, okay? Very honestly, when she created her campaign, none of us knew what fishing cats are. So, and we actually ended up telling her, like, Tiasa, I'm not sure many people would want to give funds to your campaign, or, what they would want to do. So she's like, no, let's do this. We went ahead with the campaign. And by the end of the campaign, she had raised about $1.5 lakh. She actually needed just $1 lakh because she was fundraising for post-production costs, etc. And when we asked her, Tiasa, who were your donors? Where did your money come from? What was your general analysis? So we came to know that about 80% of the people who had contributed to her campaign, she didn't know them, right? So crowdfunding is a brilliant way to reach out to people who have an interest in the area you're working in, and make them a part of your community and continue to engage with them, because they're the ones who understand the kind of work you're doing and would want to always be a part of your story. So I think crowdfunding not just helps you with fundraising, but is also a brilliant way for community engagement and to use as a marketing and awareness tool. Okay, when you're designing your crowdfunding campaign, there are multiple things you need to take care of. So internally, we at BitGiving have called this your SCOI rating. So I'm going to take you through each of these 5. So SCOI is an abbreviation for 5 factors which determine how you want to make your campaign. So I'm going to take you through each of these 5 factors and how these can be leveraged and turned around to help your campaign with the outreach and help it fundraise. So the first and foremost is your story. What are you going to tell people? So a crowdfunding campaign is an opportunity for you to tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why their money is so important for you, right? Till the time you're not able to convince them that this is something worth their money, they will not contribute. So I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay, no, I'm just going to go ahead now. So the next thing, that what defines your campaign is your theory of change, okay? In crowdfunding terms, your theory of change is what is that action you want people to take to reach the end goal of your project. It could mean something as simply as, through this campaign, I want to fundraise to help 100 girls with their school education. It can be something as simple as that. Your theory of change, irrespective of how long your campaign content is, your theory of change needs to be 2 sentences in which you can explain what you're doing, why you're doing it. Okay, so identify your theory of change. When you're writing down your campaign narrative, it is very easy to say that, this is what our organization does, this is why we do it, this is why we need your money. As opposed to that, if you were to personalize your content, to bring in personal stories, it could be a personal story of you yourself as to why you are so invested in this project. It could be the story of, any of the people being impacted through the project. So it need not always be your story, but it can be there needs to be a voice in the narrative. The reason being, if you read any article, you would always relate to something which has a personal connect to it, right? You want to build that emotional attachment with someone who does not know you, and putting down any personal narrative is always the way to do it. One example I think that works over here is when Stop Acid Attacks had just started off as an organization, and Lakshmi, who had started that organization, was spearheading a lot of initiatives for them. So we were fundraising for setting up their Shiro's Cafe in Agra. So we started off the campaign with, we're acid attack survivors, and this is what our life has been, but now we want to do this, and this is why we need funds to be able to set up the cafe, etc., etc. Surprisingly, that narrative didn't work. Instead, we thought that money would come in with that narrative, but no, it didn't resonate with people. Instead, we flipped the narrative around and said, the opening lines of that narrative were, "Hi, my name is Lakshmi. I have not stepped out of my house for 7 years because of what people would think. I'm an acid attack survivor." That's when you build that connect. You want to know more about Lakshmi. You want to know what happened to her. Why did she decide to suddenly come out of her house after 7 years? That's your hook. So always try and build that hook so that people read, want to know more, and end up contributing to your campaign. It's not always possible that you can have a video, but if there is a chance that you can create a video for your campaign, do it. An ideal video length would be anywhere between a minute to a minute and a half, where you're telling people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why that money is so important to you. Always treat a crowdfunding pitch video as your chance to talk to someone who doesn't know you. That's your chance to convince them why their money is so worth it. Okay, so that's pretty much what you're looking at in your storyline when you're talking about what you're doing, why you're doing it. And always remember that you need to make your storyline as positive as possible. You don't want people to give money because they're feeling guilty about the stories that they have read or the kind of work that you're doing. You always need to give them that feeling of hope that their money is being used for something good, and there's always that nice light shining at the end of the tunnel. So always make them feel hopeful after reading that entire content piece. Are there any questions so far? Okay, I'm just, yeah.
No, I said no.
Okay, I'm going to move on from there. The first C in our SCOI rating is, how are you as a campaigner? So very often people think that, once you've set up your crowdfunding campaign, it is going to get money on its own. That's not always true. And I don't think that should be your approach to a crowdfunding campaign. You need to be as invested in it as anyone else. Your donors do not want to see that you are not an invested campaigner. The reason being, if you stop talking about your campaign or stop creating a buzz about
Prarthana, sorry, we're seeing your desktop.
Sorry.
Okay, now it's okay? Fine. Yeah, but correct.
Yeah, sorry,
okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So, you're not going to, your campaign, your donors want to know you are invested. If you're not, they will not put in money. They know that if a donor is, if the campaigner is not invested in their initiative, it's not going to be a winning story. So you need to identify yourselves that how do you want to go about with your campaigning. It's not always necessary that, you may have all the skills that you need to go ahead with it. So if you have a team with you, identify how you want to break down responsibilities so that everyone is playing to their key strengths and all those forces are coming together to help you with your campaigning. Now, this gentleman, Pavan, whose little screenshot you can see here, he used to work with the Muktangan organization in Mumbai. And he realized while working there that one of the computers in his, in one of the schools was going bad, and he wanted to fundraise for 2 of the desktops. And he started his campaign. He realized that he's good at communicating with people and telling them what their campaign is, but he was not so good at talking about it online. So he probably got in touch with one of his colleagues who handled the entire digital media in terms of posting on Facebook and things like that. He actually ended up raising 1,39,000 instead of the initial 30,000 that he had thought he would raise, right? That was because he had identified and clearly defined who is doing what. Even though you may have multiple people working on your campaign, everyone needs to be in sync in terms of what is the sort of communication going out, how do you want to position your campaign, and hence tap into every possible conversation in the best way. Okay, so you need to identify what strengths you want to play with, how do you want to go about with your campaign. The third thing is, where is your community? So when you're talking about crowdfunding, you need to know that it is your initial community who knows the work that you're doing and would want to contribute to a cause like this. No one other than your first degree, second degree networks would know you or your work, and hence internally we term this as your initial funders list, who are literally like friends and best friends and family or acquaintances you can call and tell that, listen, I'm crowdfunding, why don't you contribute? That will help you reach networks you don't have access to. So it's very important to identify where is your community. People who resonate with the cause you're fundraising for, are they more online? Are they offline? And depending on where you feel your community is, you need to identify various channels of communication to reach out to them. So just taking a case study, for example, if you were to talk about the Friendlyco's campaign, Friendlyco's is a Delhi-based animal shelter which was about to shut down. They're a 38-year-old organization. They knew that, because of the fact that they had a bit of legacy, people knew who they were, there was credibility, they had a solid mailing list, and they had an engaged Facebook community. So they knew that their community was in emails and on Facebook. That's how they figured out their strategy for outreach, saying that, we're going to go and post on Facebook regularly. And the second thing we're going to do is send out targeted emails to our entire database, telling them why we need money and why we need their support. So if you feel that your community is more on the offline side, think about ways in which you can engage with them. Go ahead and, give them, send out SMSs to them if that works. If you feel that your community is not very comfortable with talking about with online communication, try and reach them in as many offline ways as possible so that they can either contribute to your campaign as well as share it and tell more and more people about it. Right? So identify where your community lies, give them the content about your campaign and in the most appropriate way for that thing, and help mobilize more and more people through that. The fourth thing which you have to understand is that once you've got your campaign in place, how do you go about your outreach? What are you going to do to make sure more and more people get to know about your campaign? It is not always necessary that you use social media to talk about your campaigns. It can be something as simple as sending out regular mailers or, having someone else influence it for you. So I'll give you an example. One gentleman was fundraising for a friend some time back, and he said that, I don't want to talk about my campaign on social media. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just send out emails. So he created an email list of about 300 people, because that's the list he wanted to start with, and said that, this is, I would like to introduce my friend to you. This is what is happening. And we are fundraising for his medical needs. I'm going to be launching a campaign soon. So if you could, it would be really great if you guys can be a part of it and share it with your friends and family. The next mailer he sent was a follow-up saying, here is the link where you can go and donate. Please feel free to share this email with more and more people. He ended up raising 2.5 lakhs as opposed to the 1 lakh that he had set as his target. He was very regular with his emails. He was sending out an update mailer every 3 days. This campaign happened about a year and a half back, and till date we get updates every 2 or 3 months telling us what that the person who was fundraised for, what he's doing, how he's progressing in his career. So it's very important that you identify what channel you want to focus all your energies on and do your outreach in a planned manner instead of a haphazard thing saying that, oh, acha, aaj Facebook pe, let's post on Facebook, or tomorrow let's just move everything to Twitter. So you need to figure out what channels of communication you want to target for your outreach, and that also gets defined by where you feel your community lies. And the last thing that works beautifully in crowdfunding is incentives or rewards. What you give back to people who have contributed. Very often people don't want anything, but they always go, it's always nice to go that extra mile to give them a little bit of acknowledgement for being a part of your story. I understand that it's not always possible to give tangible rewards like merchandise and things like that, but intangible rewards are something that work wonderfully. If you were to identify the unit economics of your project, if you were to say that your rupees 3,000 means one child is getting education for 1 year, that's a reward point for a donor. We know that their 3,000 rupees is creating this impact. So if you can have multiple price points, it will help donors gauge what is the impact they are creating. And it also helps people put in a little extra money. If I came to a campaign page with the thought process that I want to put in, say, rupees 2,000, and I see that at 3,000, this is the impact that's getting created, I will end up putting that extra 1,000 and make sure that I'm taking care of one child's education for that year. So try and think of ways and means in which you can cater to different contribution slabs. So something for the 500 to 1,000 range, something that's between 3,000 to 5,000, anything for 10, 20, and maybe a 25, 30 range as well. So try and cater to various contribution brackets so that people know what is the impact that they're creating. If you feel that your project is one in which you can involve your donors in community engagement, you can actually invite them to your your project area and help them interact and get them to interact with your community members. That is also a really interesting way for donors to get to know your project in more detail and the impact that their funds have eventually created. So it's always nice to think of ways and means in which you can thank your contributors. It need not be tangible things like sending merchandise or anything. It can be something as simple as thanking them through your Twitter account or thanking them on Facebook, but it really does go a long way. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to move on now to talk about what a normal campaign timeline looks like. Ideally, the average time frame we've seen for a crowdfunding campaign is anywhere between 30 to 45 days. The reason being, it is very important to keep conversation going for this duration, okay? If you stop talking about your campaign at any given point of time, you will notice that there is a dip in your contributions. So it's very important for you and your team as an organization to continue talking about your campaign. So we've defined your campaign timeline into four phases. Your pre-launch phase. The day you decide that you want to start a crowdfunding campaign is the day your pre-launch phase begins. That's when you start planning out what is your storyline. How are you going to go about your outreach? What are the different ways in which you're going to position your communication, right? You don't want to start thinking about these things the day your campaign has actually gone live. You need to have all your conversation points and communications at least thought out before your campaign goes live, right? The day your campaign goes live is your launch day. And ideally, you should be raising the first 30% of your target goal in the first 1 week. The reason being that you will need to reach out to your initial funders list. You would have already kind of seeded the conversation with certain people, telling them that, this is what we're doing. And your initial funders list is going to help you reach this 30% and move on to giving you access to more and more networks. If today I contribute on any one of the campaigns, my friends on social media will get to know I have contributed. It's helping the campaigner reach my friend network, even though I probably just posted about it once in social media. So make sure that a lot of conversation happens in that first 1 week so that you're able to reach the 30% of your goal, and more people are getting to know about your conversation. It is bound to happen that your campaign will see a dip in between. So what do you do in that case? Obviously, there have been a lot of contributions which have come in so far. People would have given short messages while donating, saying why they would have contributed. Start using that as content, reaching out to more and more people. Start following up with those who have not contributed yet. Send out, try and tap into media. There are so many platforms now available which allow you to post articles and op-eds by yourself. So just log in, talk about your campaign, put up an article there. If it gets picked up by the media house, that's amazing. Otherwise, that's just an opportunity for you to talk about what you're doing and the fact that you're fundraising to reach another network of people, right? So try building on the previous contributions which have come in to prepare for this dip period. And the last is your urgency week. It's the last 1 week of your campaign. Your urgency always helps bring in more contributions, right? If you start telling people it's the last 7 days, it's the last 6 days, only 5 days to go, only 20 more thousand to go, right? Start doing reverse calculations that, okay, we need 20,000. That means 20 people putting in 1,000 each. You can be one of those 20 people. So start positioning your conversation saying that, okay, this is what we need to do and you can help us achieve it. And continue to re-engage with all those who have been a part of your campaign so far, because that will help go that extra mile. One thing that I've not included here, but I feel is very important, your campaign closes, what next? Fair enough, you would have got your funds, you would start implementing it in your project, but what after that? You really need to make sure that the people who have contributed to your campaign, you don't stop communicating with them. They are the ones who have made this campaign possible for you. If you stop communicating with them, they're never going to come back and donate to your campaign. If you see on BitGiving, there'll be a lot of campaigns where people still go and post updates about what is happening, because it's very important for people to know what their money has done. It helps them understand that, okay, this is what we had given funds for, this has happened of it, and now the project has closed. So if you ever go back to them for a second campaign, they will be more than happy to give you funds for your new campaign as well, because you told them what happened with the funds that were raised the first time round. So it's very, very important to continue to re-engage with your community and don't stop communicating with them, right? Even if there is a delay in your project, let them know that. Any kind of update you feel that, is worth sharing, share it. If you feel that, there has been a little achievement in any of the schools you're working in or anything you're doing, share that. People like to hear positive stories, right? So that's pretty much what we say is a campaign timeline. And I'm just going to go back to stop sharing my screen and be back. So that's pretty much what it is when, when you're doing your crowdfunding campaigns. I've taken you through the very basics on what you need to keep in mind when you're structuring your campaign and how you probably need to plan your outreach. So I'm going to stop here and I'm leaving it open to you guys to ask me pointed questions. Okay, one thing before I move on to question answers is essentially what are the logistics of setting up a campaign in terms of what all information do we need from you. So I'm just going to take you through the accounting and the financials bit of it. So when you're creating a campaign on BitGiving, we take certain documents from your end as part of our due diligence. If you are a not-for-profit, we take your bank account details. And if you have FCRA, we take those bank account details as well. During the course of the campaign, the funds come to BigGiving's account. We at the end of the campaign, we generate a detailed reconciliation report which has every donor's details. During the course of the campaign, you have access to all real-time information through a dashboard. You as a campaigner will have access to a dashboard which is going to give you real-time information on every donor. It is going to give you analytics in terms of what source of outreach is working for you. So through the analytics, you'll be able to see if Facebook is bringing you more traffic or Twitter is bringing you more traffic. And then obviously you streamline your outreach according to the analytics, right? Once the reconciliation report happens, we will transfer the money to your respective accounts, be it your domestic account, FCRA account. That bifurcation is done at our end. So we will be managing those funds for you. You don't need to worry about how is that bifurcation going to happen. That's completely mapped at our end, okay? So that's essentially how the flow of funds works. Yeah. So now any questions, guys, please feel free to ask. I'd be more than happy to, take you through anything you want me to go over again. Any questions, anything specific? So I leave it, guys. I leave it to you all.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. How can we motivate foreign funders, our friends or our relatives, if they are living there? How can we motivate them to fund in our area?
Okay. So I think the first and foremost thing is that when people are living abroad, you need to communicate to them. I think when people are staying outside India, they are not always very privy to what is happening here. So they need to be made aware of the situation and what impact that is going to create, right? So that's your positioning to them. You need to tell them that this is what we're doing. Give them metrics, give them a unit economics that, potentially $50 could mean this impact, $100 could mean this impact. If you quantify it, it becomes easier to understand the impact. But I think the first and foremost thing is to make them understand the situation, what is happening, and what is the eventual impact you're looking to create.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next? Yeah, go ahead, Mukta.
You said you would be telling us about the financials also.
So BitGiving works on a commission basis, which means whatever funds you raise, we take a 6% commission fees on that. That is inclusive of everything. I mean, there are no upfront or anything. Whatever you fundraise, it's a 6% on the funds raised. And because most of you are working in the social space, hence I said 6%. For creative and entrepreneurial projects, we have a different pricing. But for social campaigns where the funds are being raised for a social initiative, it's a 6% plus 18% GST on that commission. So if I were to just give you an example, if you're fundraising 1 lakh rupees, your commission is 6,000. The GST is 18% of 6,000, which is approximately 1,080. And hence, we will deduct about 7,000 rupees and pass on the remaining 93 to you.
Okay. So this is deducted and then transferred to the bank account of the Changemaker. Okay, thanks.
Yes. Just for clarity, just to inform our trustees, what is that commercial percentage that you charge? So we would be able to pass on the message more accurately, that what kind of lower rate this is as compared to your commercial charges which you charge to creative and entrepreneurial.
So we have a flat pricing module which is defined category wise. So even if you say that you want to fundraise for a creative project, you will fall into the bucket of a creative project, which is 8%. The reason we say 6% for social campaigns is because we understand that we want to try and give you as much funds as possible and keep as little with us. But 6% is the bare minimum that we can go, because that includes all your payment gateway charges, all your technology fee and everything. So 6% is, I think, the lowest in the industry at the moment. So I think that's the lowest that we have for any of the categories. And for creative and entrepreneurial, it's a little higher because most of them are private limiteds who are fundraising and are not NGOs and things like that. So it's just a different pricing module defined by the category you are fundraising for.
Where are you based?
We're based at Delhi. I think Anasuya, you had a
Yeah,
question.
Ansuya, go ahead.
Yeah.
Two questions. One is how we get the list of these contributors, and second one is I am basically from this social field. There is no technical support. I have no expertise, and there is no technical support team. So how, what, in what way we can support to this? I can do the video, but editing that video and connecting that part, can we support from Gap?
Sure. So essentially how we work is that, for answering your first question, how do you get your donor details? You will always have access to an Excel sheet. Otherwise, if you are not being able to download it, you just tell me, I will send it across to you. So you don't need to worry about how will you get access to donor information. We have all donor information for your campaign. The second thing about how you go about with the setting up of your campaign. So the day you decide that you want to crowdfund, you get in touch with us. We'll be able to help you set up the campaign in terms of how you can put it on BidGiving. We at the moment don't have anyone in-house who can edit videos or anything. So what we usually do is, if you've just shot a video, we can take that open file from you and just probably upload it on our YouTube channel and use that. But we don't have anyone in-house who can help us with, technical support in terms of editing. But anything related to putting on the campaign page in terms of how do you position your story, what are the kind of images you think will work, we're there to guide you on that.
Okay, so just to address the second question, Ansuya, what we are doing is we have tied up with a few media partners. So what we can do is, once you have your video, the story that Prarthana mentioned as part of the SCOI, the story, the campaign, the community, all of that. So we will get in touch with the media partners who will kind of help you to develop a story, or maybe make it more, the message could go out in terms of connect to the community. So all of that will help you to get that done and then pass it on to BidGiving. So which is what we can help you as part of the Gap crowdfunding edge. But the initial work has to come from the Changemaker in terms of the video, the messages, the stories, all of that. So which we can kind of, yeah. So that's what we will help you to get it done through our media partners.
And just to iterate on, why is it so important when we say that the first draft of the campaign should come from you? The reason is that no one can tell your story or about your initiative better than you. If you explain to me over the phone, I may be able to put it down in a certain way, but that impact will only come when you put it down in your own way, because you know your projects in and out and you know what will appeal to people, right? So hence we say that you should try and put down the first narrative so that we can then help you build on that.
Sure.
To help building on that, do you provide a particular point of contact at BidGiving?
Yes, yes. So during your campaign, you will always have a campaign buddy, as we call them, who will be there, who will be a point of contact from the start to the finish. So any questions you have, any problems you're facing, they're going to be your point of contact.
Hi, I have a question, Santosh here. I mean, you said we can also raise funding for private companies, right?
Yes.
I mean, what form will that be? Because I understand it will be in the form of shares if I'm a shareholder.
So, okay. So just to clarify, India at the moment does not have any rules and regulations for equity-based crowdfunding. If you are fundraising in India, it has to be purely reward-based, okay? When you're talking about a private limited, which is fundraising, for any funds, like just as an example, if you are fundraising to probably scale your business, okay? Donors will give you money. In return for that money, you will need to give them something tangible or a service in return. If you're saying that you have a marketing business and you want to scale up and open a new office in Delhi, you could probably give your donors probably, a free class to understand marketing. So if you're rendering any service back to the donor for the money, that is okay. Because in India, we don't have rules and regulations for equity-based crowdfunding, so you cannot give your donors shares.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I mean, I heard something. I recently known about this social stock exchanges. So from your previous answer, that is still not legally permissible in India.
No, it's not. Okay. Unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Prarthana, just to probably ask a couple of questions on behalf of all Changemakers. So what is it that in terms of, while we will help them out in getting the stories and the messages and all that connects in terms of putting that together for a campaign, what is it that you need from there, some of the bare minimum that you can get from a Changemaker to actually kickstart a campaign? I mean, is there some documents or some formats or whatever?
Yes, so I do have the details of this ready in a presentation format, which I'll send to you so you can pass it on.
I will do that, yeah, sure.
I'll just go through the list. When you are creating your campaign page, you need 3 minimum things. One are a few images, a little bit of a write-up, and how you are going to be using these funds. So a budget breakup, okay? These 3 things are primary for setting up a campaign. The other thing in terms of what we need as part of documents, which is our due diligence process, we will need certain ID proofs. So if you're fundraising on behalf of your NGO, we will need any photo ID, PAN card, any address proof, a scan of your A2G and scan of your FCRA if they are applicable. So these are the 5 primary documents that we're looking at. I have all this put together with me on an email in the form of a PDF. So I'll send that to you so you have that as ready reference.
Oh, sure. That will be really great.
And I also have a presentation, a little document ready with me on what are the steps you need to follow on the website to create your campaign. So I've done a screenshot step by step on what you will see when you click on this button, what you need to do next. So I have that also ready with me, which I'll send to you all together on one email.
Okay. So one more point you mentioned about you will actually, as part of the campaign, you will then probably share the list of donors with the Changemaker in terms of so that they can communicate back to them or maybe engage with them and say probably a thank you note or whatever. So in addition to that, is it also being, while there is a separate network of the Changemaker, do you also help them to reach out to your own networks? And
so how we go about with our marketing is that any campaign that comes in with giving, we talk about it through our various channels of communication, which is our social media, which takes care of your Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we do have our mailing list. And based on the category your campaign falls under, we do targeted emails because we understand what kind of donors in our list would resonate more to a certain cause as opposed to the others. The other thing we do is we have media partnerships as well on terms of content sharing. So we reach out to a couple of online media platforms and send across campaign stories to them on a regular basis. And they pick up a few from there saying that, this is what we would like to talk about. And if the journalist ends up, wanting to publish your story on their website, we usually do an introduction between the Changemaker and the journalist, so that if there are any question answers, they can take that ahead directly and go ahead with the article. So these are essentially things that we help with in terms of the outreach of the campaign.
Okay. And typically all campaigns are 30 days or could be extended?
I would say 80% of them are between 30 to 45 days. If you feel at any time towards the end of 30 days that you want to extend it by another week, another 10 days, we can always look at doing that. But in your heads, think of that 30 day as a deadline, because if you always go ahead with that thing saying, nahin, baad mein we can extend it, it'll never happen. So go with the mindset that you want to close it in 30 days. If yes, you feel that you would want to extend it a little bit, we can do that.
Okay.
And if you feel that there are many times when you have actually hit your target amount before the time period ends, that does not mean your campaign will close. You can continue to raise funds if you feel you want to. If you want to close it, you let us know. We'd be more than happy to close the campaign. But if you feel that you want to continue going ahead with it, we're more than happy to help you overfund your target goal. One thing that I think I skipped out earlier was a lot of people very often have confusion that, how do you set your target amount? Because with crowdfunding, you need to have a definite goal you want to reach, right? How do you determine this goal amount? So the only thing that we work with is, and we suggest people to do is, think of it this way. What is the minimum amount you need for your project without which you will not be able to go ahead with at all? What is the minimum, your bootstrapped amount? Without this amount, you can't even go one step ahead, right? So when you're calculating and you're doing your budgeting, think of the bare minimum that you need, and then think of a target which is your overstretched target, saying something like, okay, if I need to do this project, I need 3 lakh rupees, but if I get 5 lakhs, this is the impact that will get created. So think of your target amount as the bare minimum and try and always look to overfund that.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there's no benchmark, Namrata. It purely depends on what your project demands of you. There are people who have fundraised as little as 10,000 rupees. There are people who have fundraised as high as 65 lakh rupees. So there is no definite that this is what you need to raise. It purely depends on your campaign and what your needs are. Because no two campaigns are the same.
And the campaign buddy is there throughout the campaign, available to the Changemaker, right? So
yes,
designated person.
Through and through. Yes, through and through. And most likely, because I've met you all and I've seen you all, now it's going to be me. So yeah.
Okay. And also, is there some kind of a accelerate or kind of a amplify program where we can continue with it for a longer term or reach out to a much bigger network? Is there something like that available to specific campaigns?
If you feel that your project is more of a long-term fundraising initiative, we can look at doing that on a long-term basis. We can then define your time frame as an X number of days. So the number of days can always be edited if you feel that you have a long-term project and would want to continue it for 6 months, 7 months. That's always there as an option. So you don't need to worry about 30 days only. So yeah.
Okay.
Just from a
yes, go ahead.
Okay. My question is there any plan or to arrange any workshop from GAP that where changemakers and donors can meet on one platform directly? And my second question is that we have 3 slum area around us, and we tried a lot to raise a fund, but still we didn't achieve our target. Even though we are running one children's center by our cost, but if you can suggest any ideas.
So what I'd suggest is that you send across the details of your project to me and what was the communication you were sending out, so that I can gauge that and then determine that do we need to reposition your storyline or do we need to send out communication in a different way? Because very often it happens that, the way you think that, okay, yeah, this is the storyline that's going to work, this is what people will really think is a good story, sometimes it doesn't happen. So we think of reworking it and positioning it in a different way so that people can, kind of have a better approach to that then.
Okay, and is there any plan to arrange any workshop from Gape side to that the change makers and donor can meet directly?
A change maker and donor. No, see, donors actually we will only get a list from whatever they may contribute, and that list is available to the NGO. So you can then communicate back to them and maybe send a note of thanks or whatever. But on the part of GAP, what we can do is, as I mentioned to Anusuya, in case, and what Prarthana also mentioned, if you send us the communication, the story, and the messages, whatever you have in terms of the impact for the campaign, we can help you to enhance it with the help of a media partner, so that whatever communication that goes out as part of the campaign is more effective and the message is very powerful for them to donate for your cause.
Okay, sir.
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, Gupta.
Just from a worst case scenario point of view, in case we are unable to raise funds, does that mean that there will be no financial liability for the NGO to pay to bid giving?
Okay, so bid giving works on a keep it all module, which means that irrespective of the funds you raise, whether it meets the target or not, we give it all to you after deducting that 6%. So that 6% remains a flat pricing irrespective of what amount you raise. And whatever amount you raise, even if it's not met the target, we will pass it on to you.
No, probably what she meant is that even if we don't raise a single rupee, is there any liability from their part?
No, there isn't. We don't have any upfront or any costs involved. It's purely on the basis of what you raise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else who has any doubts or questions related to this session or overall in terms of crowdfunding?
I think as the next steps, what I'd suggest you all do is bitgiving.com is the website. Spend some time, go through it, explore the various ways in which you can set up campaigns. In the mail that I sent you, Sanjay, I'm going to include a guidebook which has a lot of details of what I spoke about right now, apart from the presentation. So it has a few more details on what are the various kind of rewards. I'll include a few blog links which work as good content pieces to just go through as ideas for when you're building your campaign. Spend some time, go through the different campaigns on the website. And if any of you have questions on the basis of those, you can shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to address them and get on a call with you.
Okay, that will be good, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that probably addresses the overall, as the part what we thought of getting to the session. So I think in terms of how we raise money through crowdfunding and the various means and ways of getting it done effectively is what we wanted to achieve. So I think it's a very informative session. Thanks, Prarthana, for guiding us and taking us through this. I'm sure. So I've recorded this session. So what I'll do is I'll also share it with other change makers who were were interested but could not join. So and then whatever documents you send it out to us, we will share it with them so that, and plus we will also follow it up in terms of reaching out to them, connecting them to the media partner, so that we have much more effective ways of putting the campaign before it actually hits out on bid giving. So I think that's what we will do from our side, and we will keep you posted for anything that comes our way. So thank you once again, and thanks everybody for joining this session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Mugdha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.